Oh no! I'm gonna call an ambulance.
I reached for my phone as my oldest son's wife, Julie, collapsed from her chair right in front of me. She started screaming in pain, curling up in a fetal position. Just as I was about to dial, my young grandchild stopped me. "Grandma, you don't need to call." Hearing the reason why my grandchild stopped me drained the color from my face. My grandchild knew all about the unbelievable plan. "My name is Lisa, and I'm a 54-year-old web designer. My husband, who works for a major trading company, has been stationed in France for the past 9 years. He comes back home for emergencies and important occasions, but mostly he doesn't return. We both love our jobs, so I have no complaints about him not being around. My job, simply put, can be done from anywhere as long as I have a computer. We considered moving to France together when my husband got his assignment there, but we decided against it for a reason. Right around the time his assignment was confirmed, my oldest son and his wife were expecting a child. We've been living with my oldest son and his wife since they got married. Julie's parents live far away, and it seems her brother and his wife live with them. Julie's delivery was expected to be around the same time as her sister-in-law's, making it difficult for her to have her baby back home. This child would be my first grandchild. And with me working from home, I thought I could provide support for Julie during her first pregnancy. My husband agreed it was best for me to stay. My son, Tom, after graduating from a vocational school, works at a local auto repair shop. Julie took a short break from her part-time job before and after giving birth but returned to work quite early. She now works part-time at a nearby cafe. I still remember what Julie told me shortly after we started living together. "Since you work from home, I'll leave the housework to you," she said with a bright smile. "Sure, I work from home, but that doesn't mean I have a lot of free time." Julie only works part-time either in the morning or afternoon. She clearly has more time to manage household chores. Yet, she acted as if it was natural to neglect her share of the chores. In the end, the household duties remained divided between my husband and me, just as they were before we started living with my oldest son and his wife. When you live with more people, of course, the household chores double. My oldest son and his wife, Julie, acted as if they were guests, not lifting a finger around the house. It was all very convenient for them. Meanwhile, my husband and I struggled with the increased workload, busier than ever before. And now, all the household responsibilities have fallen squarely on my shoulders. I was overjoyed when my first grandchild, Natalie, was born. My husband had to go abroad soon after, so he was a bit sad, but it couldn't be helped. Natalie was incredibly cute from the moment she was a baby. And now she's 9 years old. 9 years old is such a sassy and adorable age for a girl. Natalie has grown into just such a cheeky little girl. However, Julie seemed disinterested in Natalie right from when she was a baby. Julie has always said she's not good with kids, so I was worried about leaving her in charge of raising Natalie. In the end, since I work from home, I ended up taking care of Natalie as well. Julie probably changed Natalie's diapers the least in the family. She only showed affection when it suited her, neglecting all other aspects of care. It was cherry-picking parenting at its finest. I think Natalie was about 3 years old at the time. I was incredibly busy with work. It was what you'd call a peak season. For me, working freelance, missing a deadline could spell disaster. I was frazzled, trying to juggle work, housekeeping, and childcare. But such a pace couldn't last, and one day, I collapsed from overwork. Lying exhausted on the living room sofa, Julie's words upon returning from her part-time job were shocking. "Please go pick up Natalie from daycare. This is no time to be lounging around. You haven't even done the laundry yet. I can't believe you're just lying there without doing any housework." At that moment, my face must have been as pale as a ghost. Tom came home just 5 minutes after Julie and, seeing my condition, hurriedly called the hospital. I will never forget the words Julie said to me when I was clearly unwell. Reluctantly, after Tom suggested it, Julie went to pick up Natalie, but not before giving me a disdainful click of her tongue. I'll never forget that either. Tom took me to the hospital where I was diagnosed with exhaustion and ended up staying the night. Going home meant returning to chores. So Tom suggested I stay in the hospital so I could actually rest. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in ages. I must have been truly exhausted. Though I recovered physically, I had fallen behind on several work projects. Frustrated, I focused even harder on my work. And I made it clear to Julie that I wanted her to share in the household duties. It was probably because Tom was listening. Julie unusually agreed with a seemingly earnest attitude. However, her words never turned into action. She started to help with the chores a bit, but essentially, I was still the one managing the household. I had to remind myself that not everything can improve at once. Or else I felt like I might snap at Julie. Thinking of living with my oldest son and his wife as a test of my patience made things a bit easier to bear. As Natalie grew, I noticed Julie was quite vain. Before parent-teacher meetings, she always bought new clothes. While I could somewhat understand if it were Natalie's clothes, Julie only bought for herself. Natalie is now at an age where she wants to dress up too. But she is left out. Always wearing hand-me-downs or thrift store finds. Julie seemed to be deceiving Tom about her spending. She showed off Natalie's thrifted clothes as if they were a bargain. Then flaunting her own new clothes as if they were thrift store treasures too. She's quite cunning. I prefer not to meddle too much in my son and his wife's affairs, so I never commented on this. All I could do was take Natalie shopping for new clothes each season. Seeing Natalie's happy face became my joy. I believe this is how a bond stronger than just grandmother and granddaughter formed between Natalie and me. Please don't spoil Natalie too much, mother-in-law. Buying her too many things isn't good for her education. If you're going to buy something for Natalie, buy it for me instead. When Natalie and I came back from shopping for clothes, Julie was waiting for us, fidgeting irritably. Natalie shrank back, hiding behind me. Julie, you buy plenty for yourself. And it's not like we're spoiling her, we're just replacing clothes that she's outgrown each season. I was so taken aback by Julie's attitude. I had been feeling that Julie's spending had been getting out of control lately. Probably because she's trying to keep up with her friends. Many of whom are doctors' wives or daughters of company presidents, and started wearing more brand name items. I understand the desire to show off, but there's such a thing as living within your means. I've kept quiet, but don't you think you've been a bit reckless with money lately, Julie? I know you want to keep up with your friends, but Tom's salary can only stretch so far. Do you realize how much Natalie's education is going to cost as she gets older? I had reached my limit. It was unfair to Natalie, who must feel wronged. She's at an age where she wants to dress up. That should be understood by her mother, but Julie prioritizes herself. It's like she lacks maternal awareness. Julie, you're a mother. Please be a role model for Natalie. Julie's face turned red in a flash, as if my words hit a nerve. She seemed to want to retort but couldn't find the words, just grinding her teeth in frustration. It must be frustrating for her to be hit so close to home. I hope she takes this as an opportunity to reflect on her life. I hoped this would make her reflect on her lifestyle. But then things started to change. Mom, are you feeling all right? You look pale. Are you overworking again? You're not getting any younger, you know. Tom asked me at breakfast. It had been years since I could sit down to a meal. Since I spoke up, Julie began to take on more household duties. She hasn't done much with laundry or cleaning, but she's decided to take charge of the meals. From breakfast to dinner, Julie has been preparing all the meals lately. Really? I haven't taken on more work, and Julie has been helping with the chores lately, so I should be feeling lighter. But I just feel so sluggish. Maybe it's my age. Lately, my health has been surprisingly poor. I wake up feeling so sluggish it takes me a while to get out of bed. Just a little movement makes me dizzy, and my head is constantly in a fog. It feels different from when I collapsed from overwork before. Are you okay? I'll make something easy to digest for lunch. Julie says with a cheerful voice, but without any real concern. It almost feels like she enjoys seeing me suffer. Thinking that makes me feel ashamed of myself for trying to blame my condition on someone else. Julie has been trying to change for the better. I need to respond to that effort. Thank you. Your cooking is always so thoughtful and delicious. I'm looking forward to lunch, I managed to say with a smile. However, Julie's cooking has a unique taste to it. Honestly, it's pretty bad, although I always eat it saying it's delicious. Tom and Natalie seem to eat it without complaint, so maybe it's just my taste that's off. After all, it's hard to believe Natalie would find something unpalatable to be tasty. Perhaps this is all due to my poor health. After eating the udon soup Julie made for lunch, I felt so unwell I had to stop working and rest in my room. I'm too dizzy to walk straight to the hospital. Could there be a serious illness hiding? The more I think about it, the more anxious I become, unable to sleep. Mother-in-law, are you okay? I thought maybe something warm to drink might help you feel a bit better, Julie says, bringing in a tray with hot milk. The Julie of the past would never have made such a gesture. If she had shown such remorse and changed her behavior earlier, I would have spoken up sooner. The mug emits a gentle steam. I added a little sugar and vanilla to make it easier to drink. Sniffing the aroma, I indeed notice a sweet scent different from regular hot milk. Thank you, I'll have some, I said as Julie watched me drink the hot milk intently. Almost as if she was observing to make sure I drank it all, which felt a bit uncomfortable. The hot milk was sweet and tasty, but it left a strange, bitter aftertaste. Thanks, it was delicious. I appreciate it, Julie, I said as I handed her the empty mug. That's when I noticed something gritty at the bottom of the mug. As I squinted to see what it was, Julie, noticing my attention, quickly hid the mug behind her. Well, please rest up. I'll think of something easy to eat for dinner. You need to eat well to regain your strength since health is your wealth, Julie said with encouraging words before leaving the room. I felt my dizziness worsen and closed my eyes gently. Even with my eyes shut, it felt like the ceiling was spinning. I couldn't help but worry about when my health would return to normal. I decided to take a taxi to the hospital tomorrow. Grandma, are you okay? The next thing I knew, it was already evening when I woke up. Natalie, who had returned from school, was peering at me with concern. Ah, Natalie, welcome back. Did you have fun at school today? Natalie nodded happily at my words. Yes. Just as she was about to say something, the door opened and Julie appeared. Natalie swallowed her words upon seeing Julie. She looked a bit scared of her. Dinner will be ready soon. You have to eat, even if you're not feeling well, Julie said, urging me towards the dining table. All right, I replied and got up. That's when Natalie tightly grabbed my hand. She seemed to want to say something but couldn't with Julie present. Julie, sensing this, didn't move at all. Reluctantly, I led the way to the dining room where dinner was ready. A delicious-looking menu was prepared for tonight. But for me, it was a painful task. It's not Julie's fault. My taste has just gotten a bit weird. Please eat a lot, she says as she offers the simmered ground pork over radish. The silky meat sauce on the pure white radish looks perfect. I proceed to eat, thinking it must really be delicious. And I was surprised. It was truly delicious. Julie, this is really good, I say, feeling happy with the taste for the first time in a while, and start reaching for other dishes. They all taste delicious, and I'm relieved to feel my sense of taste returning. I excitedly tell Natalie how delicious it is. Natalie looks tense for some reason. Just as I'm about to ask her if something happened, Julie, standing in front of me, collapses from her chair.
Julie! What's wrong? Are you okay?
Julie starts moaning on the floor, with sweat beading on her forehead.
This is serious. I'm gonna call an ambulance.
I reach for my smartphone in shock. But Natalie gently stops me. Grandma, you don't need to call, she says with a serious look. Despite her mother suffering, she says not to call an ambulance.
What?
I reply, dumbfounded.
Because Mom did something bad. She put something weird in your food. I switched them. I switched Mom's dish with yours.
Natalie says with tears in her eyes, desperately explaining. Shocked, I hesitantly taste a bit of Julie's dish on my tongue. It was unbelievably terrible and my tongue felt numb even from just a little taste. I immediately suspected something was off. But I couldn't just leave Julie suffering.
Natalie, thank you. You saved me. Let's take your mom to the hospital now. We can talk about this later.
Saying that, Natalie nodded solemnly and handed me my phone. The ambulance arrived quickly, and Julie was taken to the hospital. Watching Julie suffer in the ambulance, I shuddered at the thought that it could have been me if Natalie hadn't been so quick-witted. I felt nothing but gratitude towards her. After receiving stomach washing and an 4-drip, Julie seemed to calm down a bit. The doctor explained that it appeared some medication had been mixed into our dinner. A little bit wouldn't have been an issue, but the combination or a large amount could be dangerous. This time, traces of a drug that should never be mixed were found. When I mentioned my ongoing poor health, the doctor immediately ordered a blood test. The results were shocking, indicating long-term consumption of the medication found in Julie's stomach. It made sense to me then. My taste wasn't off. Julie had been adding medication to my food for a long time. Probably slower to affect me than she anticipated. Today, it seems she added a large amount, including a dangerous combination. Maybe she intended to finish things today. Regardless, it was a terrifying thought. I told Tom everything once he arrived at the hospital, asking the doctor to explain the medication part since I couldn't do it well. Tom was understandably shocked. He might not be able to believe his wife had been trying to harm his mother. He stood frozen in the hallway, and Natalie, hugging him, said in her young voice, "Dad, it's not your fault." Tom, holding Natalie tightly, apologized tearfully. I thought he was sorry for the past and likely for what was to come. The next morning was when I was finally able to speak with a somewhat recovered Julie. When I stood by the bed, Julie glared at me.
It doesn't seem like you think this is your own fault, given that attitude.
I sighed, appalled by Julie's demeanor.
Why are you still up and about? Are you unusually sturdy or something?
Julie retorted sharply, even while lying in bed.
What was so unsatisfying for you? Was I in your way? Well, you can rest easy. By the time you're discharged, we won't have to see each other again.
At my words, Julie's voice trembled. What do you mean?
This is from Tom. He said he can't stand to look at your face anymore.
I explained, unfolding a green document in front of her. It was a divorce paper, signed by Tom. Julie's eyes widened in shock as she stared at the divorce paper. She probably never thought Tom would suggest divorce. Tom had always been on Julie's side. Because I had advised him to support his wife over his mother if any conflict arose. I've also had my share of struggles with mother-in-law issues. I knew the struggles of being a daughter-in-law all too well. Tom understood my perspective correctly. But this incident was beyond any regular family dispute. It was life-threatening. Tom had made his decision.
Lies. Tom wouldn't leave me. What have you told him? You should have just died.
Julie yelled, still lacking the strength to move on her own. The medication she had administered must have been potent.
Even Natalie always takes your side. Such a disloyal daughter, not helping her mother. Despite everything I told her, she betrayed me. I shouldn't have had her.
Julie's harsh words were too much for me. I could tolerate her bad-mouthing me. But I couldn't believe she would slander her own flesh and blood. It was a relief Natalie wasn't here to hear this.
So, you don't think all this is your own doing? You have no intention of reflecting on your actions. Do you even know what reflection means?
I felt utter contempt for Julie. Struggling in frustration, Julie couldn't move freely yet. She probably wanted to grab me.
Here's a business card for a lawyer. When you can move your hand, sign the divorce papers and send them to the lawyer right away. If you don't agree, I'll go to the police and tell them everything. Even if it doesn't get to the police, I'll reveal everything if it goes to court.
I left her hospital room after saying that. As soon as I closed the door, I heard Julie yelling, "Witch!" It sounded like the howling of a defeated dog to me. A smile naturally came to my lips. I felt surprisingly refreshed. Later, Julie signed the divorce papers and mailed them to the lawyer as if she had resigned herself to the situation. Tom immediately filed them at the city hall. They were officially divorced and became strangers. At that time, Julie was still hospitalized, and her parents had come to visit her from afar. Hearing about the divorce, Julie's parents were furious and stormed into our house. Tom and I explained everything, showing the medical reports to Julie's incredulous parents. They seemed convinced after seeing the documents and deeply apologized at the end, repeatedly thanking us for handling the situation quietly, making us feel almost embarrassed for their gratitude. There was no apology from Julie. However, she kept calling Tom's phone, saying, "I want to see you." Tom has continued to ignore her, wanting nothing to do with her. The custody of Natalie went to Tom. Julie's hospitalization lasted longer than expected, and I heard she still has some paralysis. She's supposed to live with her parents in the countryside for a while. Her return home as a divorced woman has made her the talk of the neighborhood. It didn't take long for the details of the divorce to spread. Julie became known locally as the failed wife who tried to poison her mother-in-law and was sent back to her parents' home. The paralysis serves as proof of the rumors, and she can hardly go outside. Locked in her room with the shutters closed, she remains in the dark. She still muttered curses about me. It's just frustrating that Julie doesn't realize sooner that this situation is entirely of her own making. My health improved quickly after I stopped eating Julie's meals. The medication prescribed by the doctor to neutralize the drugs must have worked well. I also believe that the absence of stress has accelerated my recovery. I was worried that Natalie might be depressed about her parents' divorce, but she has become even brighter and more active than before. Julie's presence must have been somewhat stifling for her. It's heartening to think she's returned to her true self. My husband will be returning from France next spring. Natalie seems to be eagerly awaiting the reunion with her grandfather, whom she hasn't seen for a while. When my husband returns, it will be much more lively. I want to quickly forget the unpleasant memories and focus on creating a joyful future. Being able to watch Natalie grow up is the greatest happiness I could ask for.